I finally got all my cabinets in the shop. I have two 30-inch base units married together with the two 30-inch upper units up top, and I was just waiting until this floor type model, this full-length model, came in. So I have them all in here. I need to do the drawer pulls on this. Now you can get store-bought, pre-manufactured jigs specifically for installing cabinet hardware. I have a cheaper one, I have a more expensive one. We're gonna talk about these in another video. Today what I wanna do is show on a simpler job like this, how we can get this done very effectively without needing to go out and buy additional tools for our shop. So I have 10 cabinet doors, uppers, lowers, lefts, and rights. I am gonna need to build a jig for that. But when it comes to these drawer faces, there's only 2 of them. It's probably not worth the time and effort to make a jig just for those. So today, we're taking the easy way out. We're gonna lay out those drawer faces, or how I would go about laying out a drawer face. And I'm gonna show you guys a really easy way to make a good sturdy jig that if you only have it for a smaller job, it's gonna work just fine. All right, we're gonna start with drawer faces because that's the easy one to do. We don't need to waste our time building a jig for this. I'm gonna show you how I lay out for this. First thing I need to do, figure out where I wanna put this drawer pull. Sometimes they go up top here, sometimes they go in the middle. I'm gonna do in the middle. So I'm gonna take a piece of painter's tape. This is gonna protect the surface of my drawer front, especially if it's already been finished. I'm gonna lay it right about where I think that pull is gonna go, just like this. I need to know the center from left to right. In this case, I have an overall width of 18 inches, so of course that means half is going to be 9 inches. I'm also going to mark out ahead of time the overall width up and down. So here I have 5.5. I'm gonna come to 2 3/4. I'm gonna make a mark, 2 3/4. I'm gonna make a mark. Now I have the centers referenced. I need to know now where the screw holes are going to be. So this particular type of pull has 2 different options. The inside holes are 3-inch on center. The outside holes are 96 millimeters on center. I happen to work with imperial units, so I'm probably going to be better off using the 3-inch. What I can do is simply pull. We will use this from that center mark over 1.5 inches right there. Pull this way 1.5 inches right there. And now I know that this is going to be the center of the hole for that one, center of the hole for this one. And if we simply connect the dots, I can make my crosshairs just like this. Now I know that right here and right here is where I'm going to need to drill. It's perfectly centered both directions. Extremely easy. If I lay this down here flat and look over, I can tell that those crosshairs are exactly where those 3-inch on centers are. Now you don't always have options for 2 different locations or 2 different types of measurements. So let's do this again real quick, showing sort of a cheater way to do it if you don't have a way to measure. I do happen to keep a small tape measure laying around that has metric and imperial both just for these types of applications. But what if? What if you didn't have any way of marking that? We're gonna go measure this again at 9 inches because we know that's the center mark. We're gonna go back here and put the 2 3/4 because we know that is our center going the other way. And if you guys wanna know why I mark out the way that I do, I have a whole other video I will try and link for you guys. We're gonna go here. That is going to be our center mark going that direction. This will be our center mark going this direction. In this case, we want to actually lay both of these things out. I have this handle. I'm not using the 3-inch. We're gonna pretend that all I have is the option of the 96 on center. I'm gonna take another piece of tape here. You tape Nazis are gonna hate me. I'm gonna put this right here on the edge, as close as I can to the edge of that one, and as close as I can to the edge of this one. I don't want to pull this tape and warp it at all. I just simply want to put it right on the edge so that it's flush on both sides. I'm gonna take my pencil, I'm gonna poke out the 96 on center holes. I'm gonna take the screw threads from the hardware that came with this, and I'm simply gonna punch this hole out. The The threads on here are going to cut out a hole for me so that I can then transfer this to here. We use the pencil just to make a little relief. If I can get this guy actually threaded in here, that would be great. There we go. Those threads are going to punch that hole out, just like this. Very carefully, I'm going to take this off of here. I'm going to fold it in half this way until those holes line up. This might be hard to see. I'm going to put a crease in it. I can simply take this, butt it up at the edge of this drawer or any other piece of plywood, or something with a straight edge, I should say. I'm going to lay it out, and now I have a very thin crease line right here. I can drop my pencil lead right inside that crease line, run my square right up to my pencil lead, draw my line, and now if I peel this back up, I can simply come up here and transfer this. And now what I have is a center mark on this piece that I can line up perfectly on the center here. And I have sight holes here, which I can line up this direction on this center line. Hopefully this is making sense and you guys are able to see it. So I'm going to very carefully just come down here. I'm going to line all of them up until they're all in the center. So now I have this lined up perfectly on the center. I have these lines perfectly lined up right here. I take my pencil, I come through the center, I draw a little hash mark, and right there at those crosshairs, right here and right here, is where I need to drill through. And again, if I take my hardware, I can put it up against here and I can lean it over and I can see right here that it's perfectly on center. I could also take and measure it this way. If we line it up here and we line it up here, or if I use the right side of the tape, that would be beneficial. That's right at 96 millimeters. So we are perfect. That's gonna work for this. So now that we got the drawer faces done, it's time to move on to the cabinet doors. And for the doors, we do want to make a jig. So we're going to just take a couple of quick little notes right here. First things first, I'm going to take a small piece of tape. I'm going to put it somewhere where I think the bottom screw of this handle is going to go, somewhere in here. Again, I want to be able to mark on here without marking the actual product itself. I'm also going to take a measurement of the style. In this case, it's 2 inches wide. Typically, your door hardware is going to go in the center, left and right of that. So if this is 2 inches wide, this is going to go at 1 inch. Super easy to remember. The other thing is we need to know up and down which way. Sometimes we put them down here, just kind of center them on here. In my case, I'm going to move them up, and I want the bottom profile of this handle to match the top of the flat spot on here. It's just going to go right in line. So to get this, what I want to do is take this, get it eyeballed up and down where I want it to go, right about in here. And then I'm going to simply transfer a mark from the center of the screw hole to the tape itself. That's where that screw in the bottom is going to go. And by doing that, it's going to let me have my handle right here, which is where I wanted it. Now, what I can do is I can simply take a combination square, we'll loosen it up, we'll put it at the bottom, and we'll slide this down or up just until we kiss that line. Once we're at that line, we'll tighten it down, make sure that it's secure. I'll double check. That's good. That's exactly where I want. Now I can transfer this to my jig material. All right, this is the pieces that we're going to use for this. This is all just scrap 1/2 inch material I had kicking around. We're going to take this piece, lay everything out on it, drill our holes out on it. We're going to glue this one to here. We're going to glue this one to here. We can use CA glue so that it's nice and fast. We'll go over those steps as we go, but first we need to lay out what this is going to be. First thing I need to do, I'm going to mark an arrow here. That's going to tell me that this is the outside of the door as opposed to the side that would have the hinges on it. We're also going to write an arrow here. That tells me that this is the bottom. So when I look at this, this looks just like the door that we pulled these measurements and stuff off of to begin with. I'm going to set up for 1 inch because that was our center line on our 2-inch style. So we're going to go ahead and draw a reference mark here. While we're here at 1 inch, All right, so that tells me that's where that's going to go. Now, remember, we set our combination square up. This is at the distance between the bottom of the cabinet and where we want that first screw to go. This distance doesn't matter. It can be literally any number, which is why we didn't measure it. We used the tool to do the measuring for us, so we can't mess it up and we keep it consistent. Now, when I marked on the cabinet for where I wanted the first screw to go, I was marking from the 3" on center, because again, I typically use imperial when I'm here in the shop. So if I simply measure over from 2 to 5 is 3 inches. Now I know where I need to drill, and that lines up perfectly 3" on center. However, again, what if I don't have an option of using different things? Well, that's why, actually we'll leave this. I'm gonna flip it over. I'm gonna show you on the other side just for reference. I changed my mind mid-filming. Let's flip it over. Let's once again draw our 1" mark, because that's never gonna change. Hopefully all this is showing up on camera. Let's say that when I took this mark, that actually was for the 96mm on center hole, but I don't have a way to measure over 96. We're gonna do the same thing. We're going to take a piece of tape. We're gonna lay it flat on here. Oops. We're gonna stretch it just so it makes a nice flat piece. This time we don't have to worry about whether or not it's centered on here or anything. It really doesn't matter. We're just simply using it to transfer. I'm gonna punch those 2 holes out. I'm gonna use the screw threads to cut that hole there. I'm gonna do the same thing on this one. And now I've punched the holes out here. I'm gonna very carefully take this back off. Now I have something to transfer on here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look through this hole down here. I'm gonna look for that crosshair. On this one, I'm gonna pivot it back and forth and look for that 1" mark. There's my crosshair. Come over a little bit, and it looks like right there is where I need to be. And again, it's important we don't overstretch this. I'm gonna bring, yep, right there and right there. And now I can see this 1" line coming through here. I just split the difference, draw a crosshair, and now right here and right here is where I would want to drill. And if we line that up, once again, we're right on the money for where we need to be able to fit those 96" holes, or 96mm holes, but we didn't have to measure. We just simply transferred over, and we used the material itself to tell us where we needed to go. Now I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna use the 3" side for right this second. Again, we needed to know the side or the front and the base. We've laid this out. We know exactly where that handle's gonna go. Now we need to drill down. So once we drill down, we just need to use some sort of a piece of scrap here. You know what? I'll use this other piece here. We're gonna drill down as straight as we can go. A lot of times with this, it's helpful just to get a little punch or something. Not always necessary, it's just helpful. We can drop our brad point right down in there. We're gonna drill down as straight as we can go. If it's not perfectly straight on the video, that's because this is for demonstration purposes only. And now we have where that's going to be. Now if you want to, what you can do is, oh, that one didn't go all the way through. All right, so we can put this on here, line it up with this. We can put the other one in there, make sure that it lines up. It's not gonna go tight because these screws are too long for this thin of a piece of plywood, but as you can see, we're here, and this is exactly what it's going to look like. So we can take these back out. This is just to double check. And now, what we're going to do is we're going to use these scrap pieces here. These need to be wide enough that this can go in the center of it, and this will capture your cabinet door. So if you have a really goofy profile or something, you might need to make this a little bit wider. I kind of took a look already. These are 1.5 inches wide, and it looks like they're going to work just fine for what we need. what I'm going to do is get some CA glue. I want to make sure that I'm paying attention to where I'm gluing. This needs to have this backing on here like this. So I'm going to put my CA glue up here. And for this, we're just going to run a bead. We're going to use some accelerant. We're going to flip this over. Hopefully you guys can see. We're going to put it right in the middle, basically flushing it up with that end down there. Something like this. And we're going to let that sit for just a second. CA glue works wonder because it glues stuff so fast, especially making jigs like this, and the accelerant makes the whole process just so much faster. That should probably be good the way it goes. Now this one's just going to butt right up against there. So same thing. I can put some CA glue on here. Depending on the thickness of the glue that you use, it may seep into plywood edges. So it's just something to be mindful of. We'll flip this over. We'll flush it with this end here. And we'll just hold that there until it dries. And now we have our jig. So that is the entire jig. Believe me when I tell you it takes way longer to show you all the little things about it than it does to actually just build the thing. How does it work? Very simply, I'm sure you figured it out by now. We're just simply going to take this. This is the door we originally pulled our measurements from to begin with. And we're going to put it up there. We're going to slide it up and over it. Once that's locked into place just like this, I can drill right through here. You might want to put a block on the backside if you're worried about blowout, and also keep your fingers out of the way. But this is essentially what it is. If you don't feel like you're strong enough to hold it there, of course, you can always put a clamp or something on here. Once I get these two drilled, all I have to do is flip it around, and now I have it for this side. And I can do that the whole way down. And of course, I can flip it over and use it for my lower cabinet. Same thing. We're going to keep it tight and keep it tight here. Drill my holes. When I'm done, I flip it over. I do it on this side. And I can do this for all my cabinets and I'll be done. So we laid out our drawers by hand. I think that's acceptable considering we only have the true drawer faces. And then we built a very simple jig. Like I said, it takes longer to tell you guys about it than it does to actually do it. And that'll tackle this small job just fine. The downside to this, well, it's only really good for the one purpose. If we had varying handle lengths or sizes, we would have to either make a jig that could accommodate all of those different holes, or we would have to make multiple jigs, and that's kind of a pain. But again, it just depends on the job that you're doing. Something like this, all my poles are the exact same width and diameter and everything else. This is going to work just fine. Again, I didn't use it on these simply because I need to be able to have those available without holes so that I can talk about these manufactured versions. These and this, it's kind of the same thing. This, you're just going to get more features. You're going to be able to have adjustable hole placement. I've been messing around with them and there's actually some really cool features. But again, in a job like this, we don't need that fancy of a tool just to get this job done. Hopefully this helped somebody else out there. That's all I got for you guys today. Thanks so much for watching as always. See you in the next video.